Hello, I'm Maggie Dalton and I wanted to make a quick video about the recent changes to the Australian Business Visa Program. The changes came into effect on the 19th of April, and realistically it has meant that the Australian Government has made it a lot more difficult for people to apply for an Australian business visa. For some people, they've been lucky in that they have their visa applications already lodged with the Department of Immigration before the changes were introduced. For other people, they're still on track, but they've had to review their commitment to applying. But the unfortunate thing is that for a lot of people, the option of applying for a business visa to emigrate to Australia no longer exists. So what are these changes? Due to fraud and integrity issues with past applications, this option has been removed by the Australian Government. For senior managers of major overseas businesses, an option of a senior executive visa may be viable given the change, or employer-sponsored visa. But the reality is, for many senior managers of companies which make under $10 million in turnover, the window of opportunity to emigrate has closed completely. What this means is that an applicant for a subclass 163 or a subclass 164 visa must now show they have $500,000 in assets for the purposes of business investment in Australia. In addition to this, they also have to show settlement funds. The Western Australian Government, for example, requires an applicant who is applying for a Western Australian sponsorship for a subclass 163 visa application to have $50,000 in settlement funds, in addition to the $500,000 for business investment. Other states will have an amount they deem as appropriate level for settlement. For more information about this and other sponsorship requirements, visit their websites. Moving on, the Australian Government has increased the minimum net asset level for the subclass 160 and 161 to 800,000 Australian dollars from 500,000. So effectively, an applicant of one of these business visa categories is going to need to show they have $800,000 available to invest in a business in Australia, not for getting additional funds for settlement. The Australian Government has introduced these increases due to the increased cost of living and doing business in Australia. Previously, Australian business visa applicants who were relying on a business ownership interest were required to show at least 10% ownership in their main business. With the new changes, the level of ownership interest required to be shown in a business visa application will now be directly linked to business turnover figures. The following will apply. Where business turnover is $400,000 or less, an applicant must have at least 51% ownership interest. Where the business turnover is above $400,000, an applicant must have at least 30% ownership interest. Where the business is a publicly listed company, an applicant must have at least 10% ownership interest. This amendment applies to all business owner visa categories, including subclass 132, 160, 163, 890, 892, 845, and 846, and applies to the definition of main business in the migration regulations. A transitional arrangement is available for anyone who currently has a provisional business visa and who has purchased a business in Australia prior to the change and was also applying for a permanent onshore business owner visa, like the subclass 890, 892, 845 or 846. These major changes were made by the Australian Government after it considered comments and feedback from Australian state governments such as Queensland and Western Australia, who sponsor the majority of business visa applications. The main reasoning behind these changes was to improve the benefit to the Australian economy, like job creation, but at the same time improve the integrity of the visa system. So if you're watching and you have a question about applying for an Australian business visa, or you have a general question about business migration, feel free to contact me through my website. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.